key challenges I was facing is that there was kind of no mortgages out there for our space. Nobody understood what we were doing and how we were doing. The components of my space didn't really allow me to go to get an SBA loan when they were affordable. SBA loans today really aren't affordable, and we've been fighting. We can get one, but I put myself in a worse position to get an SBA loan on this. So we're trying to get to other banks to get it. And the reason, quite honestly, and I'm pretty transparent, that I thought it was the demise or could be, is that, we were negative cash flow of $15,000 a month. And it was quickly eating up the available capital. We were a well-capitalized business when we started. And after 2.5 years of paying investors and not leasing, then we become a very undercapitalized business. So it's a catch-up.
What's up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX, and on this show we talk to venue owners, we talk to event pros on all sorts of different topics. Today we have one of my favorite parts of the show, the Venue Owner Series, and we're talking to a venue owner that has a very unique co-working space / event space, and we're going to be unpacking what it's like to own that type of event building and everything that's gone into making it what it is today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome David to the show. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, it's great to be here.
Well, I am really excited that you found the show, reached out. We had a little bit of a conversation right here before you got on. Tell me about the space. Let's just get right into it. Tell me about the space. Like if we were to drive up to it right now, what does it look like? What's the feel? Give us a picture of that.
Well, if you drive into my space today, it looks very unassuming. It's a redo of a former office for a local insurance company. And I have two parts to the space. I have a 12,000 square foot main building. And in that main building, I opted to put the first 5,500 square feet in front as a co-working space. And then the balance of the 6,500 is a bar and an event space. And it can hold weddings up to 200 pretty comfortably. But we also have 5,000 square foot of outdoor space that lets us expand into a bigger wedding or bigger party. We've had as many as 650 in our building for an event that was a localized event, a Halloween festival here a couple years ago. So we can adjust capacity to what we need it to be.
Did this project start as a co-working space and then meld into doing events, or was it events first and then co-working, or was it just kind of like all together?
We kind of did it all together with the thought that how I got into the event space, it hasn't been my specialty as the co-working space. I'm a localized house flipper in Indianapolis. So my main business is flipping houses, and we've done over 400 houses in Indianapolis in the past 10 years. So, and I was approached by our local RIA. They were looking for a headquarters. They were being evicted out of the space that they had used for years, and they wanted their own headquarters. So they came to me to find them a space. I found this space for them, and they couldn't buy it because they were at the time a not-for-profit. So I said, I'll buy it, get some investors, develop it, and we'll make it a real estate incubator for Indianapolis, and you'll be my major tenant. So that's how I came into the space. So we initially wanted to, we thought it would be a real estate incubator for the co-working, and then events that we would book outside of our local RIA's events. That's kind of how it came to pass to turn it into the vision that we had. Since our vision has totally changed as things do, because we were in the middle of redoing it, making the event center, making the co-working space. The RIA was having meetings here, and then we were within 2 weeks of opening everything, and COVID hit. So we spent 2.5 years paying investors instead of leasing our space. So it's been a very painful time. So it's like, it kind of made me, it's why I decided to reach out to you, because I saw some of your other people that you had interviewed had the same kind of problems that I had, dealing with COVID and what path to take. So that's kind of how we did it.
I'm curious, post COVID, now we've been in it, gosh, we're coming up on 2025 here. And every area, obviously, you guys are in the Indianapolis area. Every area handled it a little bit differently. But coming out of that, did you see a big boom in weddings or events in 2022 and 2023?
We were just getting openings. So we were kind of the wedding business, as you know, is a typically a year ahead. So we've always been a year behind until last year and going into 2025. So, and we were, we were a puzzle. We were trying to figure out what that puzzle looked like. I'm on my third event manager in the almost 4 years we've been operational. And, and with the exception of one, each hire fit in their space and let us grow our space. And then now the last one that we just hired, a couple months ago, is the one that's going to take it to the next, take us to the next level. Our first year out of COVID with co-working and event space, we were, we had gross sales in the 200,000 range. Last year, our second year, we had sales right at I think it was 417. And this year we're going to be right around 600. With next year, we anticipate being somewhere around 800.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we've had a great pattern to get there. And it's a combination of the co-working. It's a combination of, we've made our space a multi-use space that I don't see a lot of venue owners doing, which, it may not be appropriate for their space, but, it might be, and they're just, they could be overlooking what we're trying to, what we're doing on it. But, my main space was when I wanted to do the co-working, I wanted the co-working to have enough cash flow to basically carry the event center. So the event center comes close to going to the bottom line.
That makes sense. Do you have crossover? I have all the questions, so I'm going to try to organize it here. Do you have crossover from your employee who's handling the weddings and then that same team member handling the co-working, or do you have those as two different roles?
Right now, it's currently one role, and I'm here all the time. It's my main office, so I basically give my event manager support in mostly the co-working space. We found, at least for our area, we're starting to transfer. When we first opened our co-working space, our main source of income was we were getting memberships, and they were $129 a month. And we had 11 offices, and we had, we're consistently at 50% full on our offices. So we switched a little bit of our Google marketing to co-working, and we've since filled up our space and have a waiting list for our offices. So now we're trying to decide if we want to put some more offices in our space with less membership space, because an office in our area is somewhere between 700 and 1,200 an office. And that's an all-inclusive office. And, if we have a 1,200 office, that's the same as having, for us having 10 or 15 memberships on up without the taxing of the space. So, we're up to 12 offices now, which are all full. So
Did you notice drop off after COVID of the co-working space? Because I know there's a co-working space here that we actually officed out of for a while, and it was a really neat place. I love the owners, love what they're doing, but I definitely 2020, maybe 2021, but it felt like in 2022, maybe things slowed down just a little bit because people were, I guess it felt like a lot of corporations were sending employees, like they were getting out of the office and maybe they tried to go home and be home from the whole work from home model, but it didn't work as well. So there was some of that. But did you feel an ebb and flow post COVID on the co-working side?
We didn't have any history to see if that was the situation with us, because we were just in that growth mode on the trying to get people in our co-working space, try to figure out how to get members, try to figure out how to get other types of people in our space. One of the things that we've done that we haven't seen any of the co-working or the event people come in is that we have two what I call master tenants, and they're great for both sides of the business. Where we have on Sundays we have a plant church in here, so they pay us just under $3,000 a month to church here every Sunday. So they just tax the space every Sunday morning, which is a dead space for us anyway. Mm-hmm. And then we have our local RIA who rents space, and they have access to the event center by scheduling days. They have through the week, and then their major meetings every first Thursday of every month. So they pay us $42,000 a year to be here, and the church pays us right at $32,000 to be here. So we had the bases, and we'd like to kind of get one more of those bases into our space. But it, between theirs and now we've got the co-working up to where next year it should generate $150,000 of revenue into the space with the other chief. And, we're pushing 225 for that. So that's one of the reasons we think we'll get to our at 800 number next year.
So there might be someone listening to this right now that just thinks, my gosh, co-working and all the in and out and the kind of professional environment, and then mixing that or marrying that with weddings might be kind of difficult. How do you handle the logistics between maybe kicking out the co-working folks at whatever time the event's going to start and switching it over into an event?
Co-working is a separate entrance, front and back. So they don't mix at all. I mean, or if we have a wedding in there and we have let's say it's maybe bigger than normal, where we might need some of the co-working space, we just schedule it with the co-working and say our conference rooms are going to be taken up Saturday morning. But co-working space, especially in Indianapolis, I don't know about other areas, but co-working space on Saturday and Sunday is vacant.
Yeah.
The people just aren't here. And the beauty with co-working is I'll call it attendance at an office. If they have a private office in a co-working space, you're almost lucky if you see them 4 to 6 hours a week in their private office, because these are entrepreneurs. They're out and about. They're selling. They're not, and they have appointments here. So they need a place to work, but they're never in the office. I mean, I have 2 co-working members that just renewed and are staying here. I've only seen her twice in 18 months, and that was a Saturday night. Wow. And we have a title insurance company that needs our building for appointments and stuff. They have a private office, but so co-working is not these are entrepreneurs, so the in and outs and the traffic is very small. If we have 80 members or 60 members right now, we probably have 30 memberships. If we have 60 memberships, the demographics of co-working say they're only going to be 10%. So at 60 members, the most you're ever going to have in here is 6. And it's held tried and true for almost 2 years now.
And, even in my own experience, all of our venues that we managed are not at the co-working space, right? So when we were in the co-working space that I was mentioning before, we were out at the properties or we were other places. We were irregularly coming in. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. I know you mentioned those numbers earlier of how your revenue has grown. What percentage of that is allocated towards events versus the co-working? I know you kind of gave some of those numbers, but maybe even in percentages, like 20%, 50%.
Yeah, co-working is this year. If our numbers are going to come somewhere around 600, and of that, the co-working membership is going to be 130 of that, and the 2 basic tenants are about 60 of that. So it probably works out to be about a third. Because within our event space, we have a couple other businesses that we do that relates to the event space. We create our bar is separate from the event space, so the bar actually, our events are a number and our bar is a number. And we also have what we call, with our liquor license, we can take our liquor to other venues. We have 6 or 7 other venues that don't have a liquor license. We provide the bar service for them.
That's cool.
So we have a business that, we just started that last year, and we'll gross almost $100,000 in that business. And it's typically a 60% markup business when we supply the bartenders the alcohol for the product.
What was that process? And I'm glad you brought up the bar, because bartending services, it's a tab on your website. And actually, before we get to that, this is a very cool video you have kind of flying through the space. It's almost
need a redone. It needs to be updated a little bit. The space is a lot cooler now than it was.
How was that filmed? Was that with a drone or was that with one of those little cameras that
It was a drone.
Okay. It's cool.
Yeah.
I know you want to update it, but I mean, it's a neat video. It's cool for anyone listening or watching. You got to go check out the site. We're gonna have the links for the Irvington Event Center in the description. But yeah, it's a cool video, and it shows the space. You get a feel of the environment. But let's go to bartending. So, at what point was it always on the roadmap to have a bartending component of the co-working and event space, or did this get added on later when you saw the opportunity?
No, the outside bar service was added on later. A local bartending service come to us and say, "Hey, we need somebody to get the license. We can get you the business." So that's basically we provide the alcohol and they do the service. We've now since separated from that and we've hired our own bartenders, and we'll be doing our own outside events. It puts a different profit margin for us if we do that. I mean, we did an event last year for a tattoo convention. It's 5,000 people over 3 days, and we supplied the bars and stuff for that space because one of our major fairgrounds here doesn't even have a liquor license. But we're trying to get in to be their premier vendor on it. So it's kind of what we're working on.
David, I'm curious, how do you manage all of these businesses? I mean, a lot of people struggle with just one business, and you've got the co-working side, you've got the event side, you've got the bartending side now, and I'm sure there's other things that you do as well.
We flip about 20 houses a year too, so.
I knew there was more. How do you manage your time so that you can kind of effectively get to all these things?
Well, my wife says I'm extremely disorganized, but I kind of know where I need to be. My wife helps me tremendously in the flipping business, and she also helps in the event space. I have an amazing event manager, and we have her supplemented with effectively independent contractors. So she handles the event space, and I'm here to answer any questions. But I kind of help direct and plan and oversee, but I don't kind of intercept what they're trying to do and intercede in their job if they're doing a good job in it. I'm lucky. I've got a lot, for my age, I've got a lot of energy. I still like what I'm doing. It's fun to get up and do my job every day. It's, the Event Center and the Coworking has been exceptionally challenging, over the 2 years, up until probably a year and a half ago, I didn't know if it was my legacy or my demise. So I think we've got it to a point that I don't feel like it's my demise anymore. I mean, we're still looking for a partner to come in because of the financing on them. I related really well to one of your guests. I think it was last week. I looked at the gal who said, I've talked to at least 6 lenders, trying to get my space. Well, I think I just looked at my records, and I think I just applied to my 7th lender and trying to get my investors. A lot of my investors want to be paid off, and I want to get them paid off. They've been great to me, but they're cumbersome to me now because of the interest rate I'm paying, and I become super cash positive with better financing or a good what I call strategic partner into this space. I'm not a control freak, but my hands are on everything all the time.
Yeah.
So that, it serves me well the way we do it.
I'm curious about the experience between going from house flipping and maybe the workflow of that versus the workflow of events and the co-working space. Is it much more hands-on on the co-working and event side?
No, it's probably a lot more hands-on in the flipping side.
Okay.
On it, because you have to deal, with the event space. I'm just dealing with one person to help me, to implement all the stuff that we do in the event center. So I'm kind of only dealing with one person. When I'm flipping a house, I'm probably dealing with 3 different sets of contractors. I'm dealing with getting the house ready to market. Then we're marketing the house. My son is part of the marketing team for the real estate, so he does all the marketing of the flip houses and stuff. So I don't get too involved in the marketing, even though I've, been a real estate broker in Indianapolis for 53 years now, I think. So I've seen a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was curious about. The event space, I think depending on where you are in the country, depending on what your venue looks like and kind of the DNA of your property, it can be extremely hands-on and extremely labor intensive and not that profitable. And it sounds like you've found a way to, with juggling that and the co-working, you found a way to not only increase your profits, but also not have it be a huge operational headache. You did mention though that you were 2 years ago, you said, you didn't know if it was going to be your demise or your legacy. What were the components of that? Like why did that feel difficult or tough at that time? What were the key challenges you were facing?
Well, the key challenges I was facing is that, there was kind of no mortgages out there for our space. Nobody understood what we were doing and how we were doing. And the components of my space didn't really allow me to go to get an SBA loan when they were affordable. SBA loans today really aren't affordable, and we've been fighting. We can get one, but I put myself in a worse position to get an SBA loan on this. So we're trying to get to other banks to get it. And the reason, quite honestly, and I'm pretty transparent, that I thought it was the demise or could be is that, we were negative cash flow of $15,000 a month. And it was quickly eating up the available capital. We were a well-capitalized business when we started. And after 2.5 years of paying investors and not leasing, then we become a very undercapitalized business. So it's a catch-up. It's a catch-up tool.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for being kind of transparent about this, because I don't think enough people talk about it. Could you, in the spirit of that, could you break down for someone who's listening to this who maybe is, 4 years ago or 5 years ago at the very beginning of the stage that you went through, could you break down the process of, maybe identifying the building? Like, what are the steps in order to do what you've done? Identifying the building, finding investors, renovating the space. Like, could you break that process down to get you from kind of inception to today?
Well, I was a member of a rehab, and I was probably maybe the prominent house flipper in the space, and it had 1,000 members at the time. And so when Syria wanted to find a new space, they asked me to help them identify the space, which they did. And when they couldn't close on it, then I kind of saw an opportunity where I could come in and we could make a real estate incubator, because we had 1,000 people to draw off the space. And then, but we found enough investors to finance the acquisition of the building, and also a lot of the rehab of the building.
Can you break that process down? So when you say you found investors, are these, friends that you knew, kind of connections that you just said, hey, we're raising $1 million or $2 million, something like that?
Yeah, all of these people were small investors that had excess capital. A lot of them were people that invested with me on house flipping. A lot of them were people that invested in other things in real estate. So we had a meeting and saying, our goal was to raise $1.5 million to do this space. Here's the acquisition. Here's the rehab. Here's what our costs are. And we had agreed to pay them, I think it was 10% of on the interest rate. And then it was deferred for 2 years. And then they got a 10% bonus when we paid them all. So a lot of the people stayed in after the time. Several of them wanted out. And at that point, I was able to get a mortgage for probably, it's about 1/3 the value of what the building is today, and pay the majority guys that wanted out of the space. I had a person that was helping me, very creative guy, but him and I just didn't mesh, and we had to separate that partnership. That's the whole podcast by itself. But
I won't ask questions about that.
Yeah, because it it didn't work out for us. But in fairness to him, he helped me. I'm very visionary because of the houses, but his vision was better than mine. So a lot of the things that we have in this building we've corrected, but his stuff was really important to make it as cool a building as we do have. So, but it just didn't work out between him and us. So I basically was launched into the co-working space and the venue space and absolutely knew nothing about it. The first thing I had to do was hire a consultant, a coach out of Chicago to make me understand the co-working space, rather than me try to go 100 different directions. And she was at the time very expensive, but the first 1 hour session she had with us, and this is after the co-working is pretty much open, and we had got it open, but we couldn't lease a lot of it. And her first hour of consulting with us paid for her whole thing on what she saw in our vision. She asked me my vision. She looked at the space and seen it and says, well, your visions don't match at all. So which vision do you have? So we immediately switched it to my vision, and then it changed the whole dynamics of my co-working space. So we knew we couldn't do a lot of the things that we wanted to do with the event space, because Indianapolis is one of the states that was shut down pretty tight. And so it just made it a lot harder for us. I mean, our governor threatened to put you in jail if you had a meeting. So it was pretty tough for us in that regard. And, we always thought we would be a real estate incubator, and we are a lot, especially with the memberships, because I do a lot of coaching on flipping houses. And one of the things, we have a mastermind in our group, but to be a part of the mastermind, you have to join our co-working space as a membership, and we have a mastermind meeting every other week. So we have 20 members that come to that just to talk about house flipping and the house business in Indianapolis.
I can imagine, as a visionary, do you get energy from being around all these other creative types, these entrepreneurs that are building their businesses in the co-working space?
I do, and I get a lot of satisfaction of seeing the success of the people that's in our group. There's one kid in our group that, 14 months ago, he quit his job making $65,000 a year. He told me, he said, "You've convinced me I can do this." And he had his first year anniversary at our mastermind meeting, and he had made $270,000 flipping houses in Indianapolis.
Wow.
Starting from ground zero.
Congratulations. That's so cool. I love hearing stuff like that.
It's a cool, being a mentor, being able to be a mentor or a coach. I started our mastermind because I didn't have time to coach. And this, gets some people in my space, and we can collaborate all the time. And the people want to be around the other people. And so they come in, and the ideas that come in and out of our mastermind can be pretty impressive sometimes. Yeah. And it's just not me. So
yeah, well, and absolutely that makes so much sense. You get around people. Sometimes it's not even the idea that's shared, but it's the two ideas getting together that it's like, oh wait, there's something else that triggered something else in my brain. I got to go implement that in my business or whatever it may be. It's honestly one of the things we're trying to do with WEVA, the venue association that I started, because just like what you're doing with real estate, the venue space is pretty. I mean, you said you hired a co-working coach, right? How did you do on the venue side? Like, how did you get education for that?
Well, the education is I went and talked and visited other venue managers. For the most part, they're really all the part. They're very sharing. There was a person. It's a great story. It's a guy who started the biggest co-working space, and he's been very involved in Indianapolis and venues and other stuff around there. And I was talking to my pastor at church and say, well, I was trying to get a hold of this guy, and I said, I really need to talk to him. He's an important part. And I told him his name. He said, and I tried numerous times to talk with him, and our pastor says, I know him. And he texted him, and 2 days later, I had a meeting with him, and we've become friends. And I said, well, I do apologize that I had to use God to get to you, but I thought you were important to, for me to be with. So we have lunch, once every 6 months or so. And, but he come and visit our space. I had the top caterers who had big event spaces that they were managing, come and see my space and, to look at it. So having the good contacts in the real estate, I could almost get to anybody and get them out here and take a look. One of the things I do with banks now is when I try to make an application, I want, when they visit the space, I want my originator who's helping me get the loan, and I want one person that sits on the board to approve loans to come with it. I said, I'll buy your lunch, whatever I have to do. But I said, when the loan goes in for an approval, I want an ally at the board meeting.
Yeah.
And hardly anybody does that for a loan. So it's got us pretty far down the line with a lot of loans. And we're trying to untangle some stuff to get the final approvals, because I've got, one of the reasons with ours, not even bringing it into it, is I've got another 8,000 square feet in another building in the back of my space. And because we have so much demand for Saturday, Sunday weddings that are on a budget we're a very good entry level venue. I mean, our weddings for our space is on a Saturday is around $6,000. So that's a very affordable, and we try to have it as a package. But every time we get a $6,000 wedding, we tend to get a $2,500 bar. And
at a 60% margin, that's
it's a great margin. And then what we don't do, but because of and we've got a lot of business because of this, is we try to have very few upcharges. And we've also tried to, we're getting a fair rent for our space. We're happy with that today. We'll raise it as, our philosophy is we're going to raise it as we earn the right to raise it, rather than just raise it.
Like,
so we're trying to not have a lot of add-ons with our venues. We have the services, but we refer an outside business to do that. So we're not adding it on. They can choose it if they choose. So they don't walk in at a $6,000 expectation and walk out at $8,500 on it. But we have outside people, so we don't get the Google review and say, hey, it's a beautiful space, but I walked in at 6,000 and walked out at 8,500.
Which you got to be careful with the packages. And I think that's one of the downsides of doing a package. There's certainly upsides as well, but the downside is, you go in with an advertised cost, like you said, of 6 or 8, maybe, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is. And then you walk out, and once you've added on food at $60, $80, $120 a plate, and then you've added on a 20% gratuity, and then you've added on a service charge, and then you've added on, you're $35,000 real quick.
Yeah. And we don't, we have 4 or 5 preferred caterers. We don't, they can bring in their own food if they like. And we don't want to, we don't do an upcharge on the food. Our choice is not to do that because we don't want the responsibility of it. If something goes wrong and we've upcharged it, then now we're on the hook with that. So we're trying to limit our liability in what we do. The bar obviously is ours, but that's going to be a lot of venues won't allow a cash bar. Well, a cash bar is 50% less profitable than a hosted bar. So we get that, and we're willing to go along with the guest if they want to pay. We'll have a minimum for them, but it won't be excessive. Pays for a bartender, pays for what we think's the thing, but we'll always try to get the person who's having the wedding to, maybe make the first hour, an open bar, and then we'll switch it to a cash bar when we're out of your in the lounge. So that way it almost always gets us at least a $2,000 bar.
That's cool.
You drop it.
That helps with the guest experience too, because so many couples, they haven't been married before. They don't know the process. So that's you and your team using your expertise to help them have a better time, which makes sense.
Yeah, and we'll show them, other venues around that, we'll show them. I said, if you go to the other venues around the city, this is what you're looking at for bar alone. They're not letting you have a cash bar. And if you have 100 guests, they're going to charge you a minimum of $3,500 for the bar. We can probably get you out of this bar in the 17 to 2100 range. on it. So we give them, and our space it's in an area called Irvington, and it's an up and coming area. We don't have a lot of competition for parties and stuff. The churches have been the basis of wedding receptions in our area. It's in the basements, and churches really don't even like doing it.
Yeah.
On it. So we get a lot from that. We get a lot of, we've made a lot of cold calls, and, we get quite a few celebrations of life. The beauty of celebrations of life is it's typically Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And it's when you can turn the space around for them, then, we can have, $1,500 of found money. Half the time now it's catered and with an open bar. So, and these are coming in the dead times.
Yeah.
We market to a lot of corporate venues. We just had a corporate venue sign for 5 training sessions for the year on the Tuesday. So, we consider Monday through Thursday as found money. When we're trying to find something in our space.
That's great. This is really cool to hear. It's really inspiring to hear how you've taken a really challenging environment with COVID and just the process of not knowing anything about not only co-working, but also events, and, the growth that you've mentioned and the trajectory that you guys are currently on. That's really encouraging. That's awesome.
We're pretty excited about it. We've got we still spend money tweaking our space. Being a house flipper, I see a lot of stuff in my space that other people don't see. And I think I've got to change this. I've got to do this. And my wife's all over me. She said, this isn't HGTV, because all of our houses have to look like HGTV when we put them on the market.
Nope.
So, so she's my throttle a little bit, or my brakes. She'll want to put the brakes on me.
Well, it's a great space, and I love the pictures and the video, and I'm excited. If you do get another video up there, I'll have to check it out. But we will put the links in the description for that. And if someone's interested, David, in connecting with you, maybe even they're local to the Irvington area, maybe they're interested in the mastermind, what's the best way to connect with you, or even connect with your event venue Well,
our venue is dshort@irvingtoneventcenter.com, and you can reach me on my email, which is dshort at it's dshort@irvingtoneventcenter. Perfect.com is my email. And we're pretty, if you email me, we'll get back to you same day or next. We're really good about getting back to people.
Awesome. And it looks like on the request a tour page, you can just fill out a little inquiry as well. Is that inbox that your venue manager handles?
Yeah, my venue manager did. And, just as a kind of ending up, and one of the things that is so important to our spaces is reviews. And if you're getting into the venue business, the reviews are everything. And we hired a marketing group that literally put us on the map with reviews and inquiries. Prior to hiring this group, if we got 4 tours a week, we were getting a lot. And I looked at our tour page, we've really launched pushing our space. In the last 8 weeks, we booked $145,000 worth of events for next year.
Wow.
And July, we had no event. Last July, we had 2 events on our December calendar, and this December, we've got 19 events on our calendar on it. So, but with the Google and the response that he got us, we're turning 20 tons a week in our space. And literally in 2 months, our offices got full with a waiting list. I mean, the bay you might have heard earlier in the podcast was then finishing out 2 offices for a not-for-profit we got coming in.
Exciting. That is so cool. David, I love hearing that, because there's definitely the difficult parts, the 6 or 7 or 8 lenders that you got to go through. There's that side of it. There's the difficulties it takes to get in this business and run this business. But then there's those success stories, and you find the special moments, the people that you're able to bless through the events that you have. And so I love that. And huge congratulations on what you guys are doing there.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been great. Thanks for taking your time today. And yeah, everyone check out the Irvington Event Center. And I'm excited. Maybe one day we'll bump into each other in Indianapolis.
Sounds great. If you ever need to come to sporting events, I'm your guy. I can get you in.